there's also a mod for Arma, which is a military simulator. And they're saying like, yeah, when someone inevitably makes some interesting content within Unreal Tournament, within Unreal Engine 4, on that marketplace, they're going to see that. They're going to see how many like votes it's getting within their system. They're going to be able to cut a deal with that person and probably release that as a standalone game. I'm sure that's part of their plan, right? Because they're seeing other people do it, like Bohemia, like DayZ, which the sales of DayZ itself superseded the sales of the base game it was based on, which is unbelievable and really interesting. So, you know, if I was consulting for a developer right now, or someone who sort of had their own engine or had a lot of freedom technologically, I would say like, what's more expensive and what's more risky, right? Like, to spend a few years and several $1 million building one game that you hope will do well and you have a lot of confidence in, if like spend a lot of time and resources doing one thing, or creating a platform maybe out of an existing game or your existing technology and allowing people to make stuff in that, and then you cut a deal with the best one or the best two. And Bohemia is actually continuing this right now, and since like June or so, they've had an active modding contest with this like €500,000 prize pool, right? Basically encouraging people to mod and create like standalone takes on their existing technology and engines that they're going to cut deals with these people actively. Like, it's just something I really hope people are paying attention to, because it's going to, I think it's going to be, it's going to sort of set the future for how companies like Epic make their money on what is very expensive technology, not simply through licensing, but by cultivating a kind of landscape that allows people to, encourages people to work within it. Alright, so I've got one more trend here, and this is just sort of, I talk a lot about Counter-Strike. It's a really interesting game to me. One of the ways it's interesting to me right now is there are people gambling in Counter-Strike. And they're not gambling real-world money, they're gambling in-game items. And this is something that's sort of come to my attention over the past year or so, like, basically, you know, like any other popular competitive game, there are teams that play Counter-Strike. They play in the 5-on-5 format. A lot of them are in Europe, but there are a fair number of great ones in the US as well. And they play in all these different leagues. And through this site, CSGO Lounge, people can place the items that they've received in-game, right? So, you know, by playing Counter-Strike, you receive these item skins that I mentioned earlier, and they have a certain value. So say I get a pistol that's worth $1. You know, that's the kind of measurement of its rarity. And I can sell it on the Steam Marketplace for actual money that replenishes my Steam wallet, or I can bet it on this marketplace on one of these matches that I mentioned. You can see sort of the matches mentioned on the right-hand side here, and there are odds placed in these teams. It's really fascinating, because it's sort of this like self-closed ecosystem where that just represents like an insane amount of engagement. I play the game to get items, and then I bet those items on teams that I'm passionate about, and if they win, I get items back, and like, no one's doing this. I mean, there is sort of like a Dota equivalent of this that people are, other than Valve, that people are betting these items through. But just to give you guys a sense of the scale of it, because it seems like really underground, like, is this legal, is this okay? I mean, there are some questions there in the sense that, like, there's no age checking, right, in the current system, so a 13-year-old could essentially be gambling. But what it speaks to for me is, like, I think players want more verbs with items, right? With microtransaction items. I mean, you look at something like League of Legends, and it's disappointing to me, despite being the biggest game in the world, the biggest core game in the world, however you want to measure it, that I can't craft anything, I can't trade anything. Like, my verbs are buy, basically buy, and that's basically it. You know, I think, and this isn't approved by Valve. This is run by a third party. This sort of Counter-Strike gambling service, but it's made possible because of the openness of their API, right? Because they have a trading system. This other verb, gambling, kind of emerged organically, and they haven't done anything so far to shut it down. Who knows if that'll happen? But yeah, just to touch on the scale of this real quick. In August, there was this big German tournament, the biggest one ever for Counter-Strike, and just on the first day, $1.1 million worth of items were like placed in bets. There are tens and tens and tens of thousands of people involved in this already. And I only expect it to be more popular. Counter-Strike's really spiking right now. And it's bizarre to me that, yeah, I have there at the bottom bullet point, players can bet up to $240 worth of items in a single match. And if they win, you're getting a certain amount of that back. Yeah, so as I said, the takeaway here is, I think it's, as game designers, if you're making a game that has microtransactions, that has a crafting system, that has like items being generated, like how can I get the maximum amount of utility out of those items? How can I give players more things to do with them, basically? Because clearly there are plenty of people willing to put them on the line for strange reasons, to engage more with their game. That's really fascinating thing. Right. So now it's Nathan's turn to
Yes.
do what he does.
Yes, and like I mentioned, I mostly work from the business side, or the marketing side of the video game industry. But over the past 7 years, I did, being a core gamer myself, got to see a lot of trends of the evolution of games and how folks market games and the design of the games themselves. So, kind of share some of those perspectives. So the first is, of course, that the game industry isn't a zero-sum game, and it doesn't need to be. And the next one, kicking off on that. So this is some quick stats on the U.S. market. So the U.S. is roughly 300 million people. But if you look over here, roughly the number of active gamers in the U.S. is roughly half that, and the percentage of paying gamers is a little bit more than half of that. So there is a pretty large population that you can tap into, and this is just the United States. If you are an aspiring game developer, or working for an indie studio, or working for a large studio, the market that you can tap into just in the U.S. is pretty large. And even you might think to yourself, oh, the number of paying gamers is in like the 80 million range, but active gamers are in the 150 million range. That delta, what good are those gamers to me? And just like Evan mentioned, they could be, if you're doing a multiplayer game, they can be the content for the paying gamers. Or, in some other types of scenarios, you can monetize certain types of games via advertising. Even if a gamer doesn't pay, there's still ways that they can be of value to you. The other interesting thing is that when looking at the age breakdown of people who play games, you'll see that they're all over the place. And according to the ESA, the largest share are at 36 years and older. So, kind of surprising to me when I saw this, but it was kind of intuitive because I do fall myself into that 36-year and older category. So in a way, I wasn't that surprised. I just didn't realize that there were so many of me out there. But in any case, things to keep in mind is that as the medium matures, the audience matures with it. And then pretty soon you're going to wind up in this, well, we're already in a situation where the types of games that would appeal to someone like me may not necessarily appeal to a 16-year-old or a 9-year-old. So, there's definitely markets within markets that you can tap into. So one size definitely doesn't fit all. The next one is that there are so many platforms. And so, a thought experiment, let's imagine that everybody played fantasy RPGs, right? Okay, fine. But in this thought experiment fantasy world, where everybody plays fantasy RPGs, you have all of these various platforms that you can create the games. So someone who creates an awesome, console fantasy RPG that, locks the market for the console game, but they don't own the smartphone or tablet realm, which forms a significant part of where folks are playing games, or for that matter, on PC. So once again, even within a particular genre, there's still a lot of options where you can create games that differentiate themselves from others. And this is, not news to a lot of developers. This is a statistic from GDC, basically a pre-show survey that they did in 2013. And And basically, it's interesting how closely it follows what people are playing. So looking here, once again, with 53% of folks playing games on smartphones, and then in the GDC survey, 58% of game developers happen to be working on smartphone games. So once again, there is a sense that people and developers are knowing where the market is going and creating games for those areas where people are willing to play games. So, in every piece of available technology and medium, if you can make a game for it, folks are willing to play games on it. And again, to the point that it is not a zero-sum game, as there are more platforms that people can play games on, as there are more people of more diverse age ranges that can play games, so has the amount of revenue made within the video game industry increased. And of particular note, it's increased in the online gaming realm as well as the hardware and the more traditional gaming software. And not to keep beating that dead horse, but there's so many different genres. So if you're really passionate about any particular type of game genre, there is a market out there for you to fill, and plenty of platforms for you to fill it on. So, going back to the being in the over 36-year-old category, one of the things that you have to keep in mind, and one of the trends that I've been seeing, is that time is one of those scarce and valuable resources that gamers have, and basically when you make a game and you want people to play it, you are asking them to not only give up some money potentially, whether it's via microtransaction or an upfront payment, but you're also asking them to give their time, which in many respects is irreplaceable. And this particular article that came up on CNN Tech highlighted some interesting points, such as only 10% of avid gamers completing the final mission according to Raptor. So here are people buying AAA games, and only 10% of folks that are buying AAA games according to Raptor are actually finishing the games, right? So what's going on there? So taking a look at me as a quick example. So currently, I am playing Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning. Yes, I had this on the shelf for a long time, and I'm finally getting to it. I'm getting close to the end. I'm one of those completists. I have to finish the game. Okay, cool, right? But not only am I a video gamer, but I'm also an anime fan. So I have to carve out some time to continue watching Attack on Titan, because that's what is big, and it's a really addictive anime show. So if you guys haven't seen it, after episode 4 it starts getting good. But not only am I a video gamer and an anime fan, I also like tabletop gaming, and I have to get together with my friends at least once a week to throw the dice, because why not, right? And then, oh yes, I like tabletop war games as well, so we have to get together for some of that. And I like Magic the Gathering, so I have to make time for that. Oh, and I like to cycle, and yes, this is one of my cycling outfits, and I do own that Captain America shield, so I have to set aside time for cycling because, stay healthy and all that. But on Tuesday evenings, when I'm feeling all right, I want to go to my fencing practices, so I have to make time for that. And then, oh yeah, I have to, collect artwork, so I do some of that. And just generally hanging out with my buddies because we like to drink. Oh yes, and go to conventions, and travel internationally. Oh, and I'm married with children. But I still haven't played Titanfall, so I have to make time for that. And I'm so looking forward to Dragon Age 3, so I have to make time for that. So, just when you look at your own lives as gamers and think about all the things that you want to do with your time, and then think, okay, I'm making this game, or I want to make a game, or my team wants to make a game. You know, what kind of time commitments are you asking of your audience versus the time commitments that you as a gamer would want to put in? So to that end, what's interesting is that once again, according to some numbers that from Raptor, the longest amount of time that folks are willing to put in a play session, apparently, from these statistics, is around 3 hours or less. You know, so what does that mean? That means that when you are designing a game, what you want to be able to do is give the gamer a satisfying play experience in as short a time as is reasonable for the particular game design that you're working on. So, you know, going back to what some of the popular trends that Evan mentioned, you know, what's part of the reason that multiplayer is so popular? Well, you know, matches can be anywhere from 15 minutes to half an hour. Okay, so that's a time investment a lot of folks can put in. You know, they get a satisfying experience in that 15 minutes to half an hour, you know, hour or whatever. And then, sure, they have that satisfying game experience during that time, but what next? You have to design the game in order to give them a hook to want to come back and do another play session. So you're not asking them to commit too much in a single play session, but you're giving them just enough to both satisfy them for that time interval, then give them something to come back and keep playing over and over again. And on a similar note, when our properties back in the day were experimenting with online video back in the early days of online video, we noticed a similar kind of dynamic, right? Folks were willing to spend a half an hour watching a bunch of 5-minute videos, but if you put a half an hour video in front of them, they won't watch it. Or they'll watch it like a third of the way through and stop. So, you know, this is the kind of dynamic that you have to keep in mind when thinking about your respective game designs. And as if that weren't enough, here is some numbers of per capita amount of time spent per day per gamer. So, you know, you're talking about 17 to 25 minutes per capita. Now, sure, there's some dilution there, but still, I mean, when you're talking about a per capita gaming of, you know, topping out at 25 minutes by 2015, once again, it shows that there's a lot of time pressures being put on gamers. And so, you know, so there is that sense that in order to give them a satisfying play experience, you want to keep it as brief as possible, but then give them a hook to keep coming back for more. Oh, yeah, in case you didn't hear me the first time, and this isn't just solely an American thing, here are some numbers from the UK. You know, when you're talking about folks committing no more than 4 to 5 hours a week on playing games, then that's something for you to, again, keep in mind when designing the types of experiences you want folks to have in the setting. And the last thing is about marketing. So, you know, you guys are all gamers, and quick question, how many of you guys have ad block on, interestingly, when you surf the web? All right. One person who will admit to it. Cool. Thank you for the rest of you. But one of the things that we've been noticing, both in the successful type of marketing, as well as what the audience seems to be gravitating towards, is if a gamer views an ad that's just an ad, right? They view it with a certain amount of skepticism. But if they view something that gives them value, i.e. entertains them, they are far less likely to feel negative towards that, because they feel that they're getting value. They're being entertained, and oh yes, it happens to be an ad for this game, but what the hell, it made me laugh. I don't care. All right. And it might make me actually check out that game, right? So that is an increasing trend. So when you're looking to market to your audience, market to them in a way that entertains them. Now, here are some, some quick examples that different companies have used, and I also include some non-gaming companies in there. Once again, like the Coca-Cola, because this isn't the trend that's just limited to game companies, or a phenomenon that's limited to game companies. It's a phenomenon that is being applied by anybody who essentially wants to reach 18 to 34-year-olds. So if that's your target market, this is what you want to do. And in these particular examples, you don't necessarily need to partner, as in these cases, with an established YouTube personality or established online personalities. You know, the nice thing about platforms like YouTube or Twitch or Facebook and Twitter and all of that is that they're essentially very democratic, right? So if you are, and hopefully you are, passionate about your own games and have friends that are passionate about your games, you can begin uploading your own content to show the, you know, your target audience, or attempt to reach your target audience via these mechanisms, by not only showing your game, but showing the passion and the fun that folks can have while playing the game. And hopefully, and importantly, for this to work, you have to make these promotional videos that you can make yourself and upload onto YouTube or do it on Twitch. You have to entertain them. So you can't just be like, oh, this is my game, you know, blah, blah, blah. You have to show them and demonstrate that your game is fun and why, right? Or, you know, make them laugh in some way. So those are the particular trends that I've been seeing on my end. And I guess at this point, happy to open it up to any questions that you guys might have, or trends that you guys may be seeing on your own end.
Yeah, related to what we talked about, or totally not, that's fine. And I guess I'd say real quick too, like, critically, I love that you brought up the notion of time being a resource of gamers. And for us, like, it's even correct in the way that we review and evaluate games, right? We view time at least as equivalent as money, even if a game is free to play, right? Perhaps especially if it's free to play. It's just a game that respects your time is more likely to be appreciated by us. I mean, there are certainly like Divinity Original Sin is like an epic 80-hour super deep grognard RPG. We can appreciate it for that, but if the new Assassin's Creed is just going to make me grind and grind and grind to get this resource in the game to complete this quest, I might frown at that.
Yeah. And again, to that point, I guess the difference between something feeling like a grind versus something not is, does it fall into that, that 1 to maybe, half an hour, or 3-hour time frame in order to get the payout for the play session, right? It's something that has a shorter, shorter amount of time to get the payout is a particular experience that feels less like a grind. Now there's a particular balance there that you want to strike, because once again you want to give folks a hook to keep wanting to come back to play, even if they string 3 play sessions in a row, or break the play sessions up between 1 each day, but you still want to keep them coming back for more, whether it's for to serve as content for other players or to buy items via microtransactions.
Hey, could you go more in depth about those hooks? Like, could you give me an example?
Yeah. So I am, in my particular experience, I like fantasy RPGs, so there it is. And what's interesting there is you can think of the play session as being the individual quests that you go on, or a particular story arc. So in Kingdoms of Amalur, like for example, the House of Ballads quest, so or arc, where you do a bunch of quests, and for those quests, maybe like 2 hours, 3 hours tops to complete all those quests for that particular story arc, right? And at the end, you unlock a destiny that buffs your character, right? But see, now then the hook becomes, oh, I've unlocked these extra abilities. I want to actually play to use these extra abilities that I just unlocked.
Well, what about from a casual gamer standpoint? Like,
from a casual gamer standpoint, it could be unlocking new levels. So, so the payout, so you have a satisfying play session where, Angry Birds is a perfect example if you want to go down the casual route, right? Yeah. So the payout of Angry Birds at each level is you knock down, you destroy all the pigs, knock down all the obstacles, and you get a score, right? But you can't play every level from the start. The payout there, the hook, is, oh, I've unlocked this new level, and it looks really cool, so I want to go and play that now, right? So you're giving them something, a reason to come back to play again. And so it's those kinds of hooks. So, in one case, in the case of RPGs, it's the unlocking new abilities, the leveling up, and then the sense that, oh, I want to try out these new things that I didn't have before. In the case of the casual game, it's like, oh, these are new levels that have cool designs to them that I haven't seen before. And, again, using the example of Angry Birds, you unlock new birds the more you play, right? So it gives you more options and enriches the play experience.
I say too that uncertain rewards are often more interesting, depending on game type, depending on genre, than certain rewards. So if you look at something like Diablo and Borderlands style loot games, your expectation is that at the end of this quest, in this boss, in this chapter or something, I'm gonna shoot something or stab something, and out of them is gonna pop out some incredible item. I don't know how incredible it's gonna be. I don't know if it's gonna pertain to my character. Whereas in that uncertainty, right, there's an amazing collection of essays on this called Uncertainty in Games. It just speaks to how uncertainty is a core concept in all game design, from chess to poker to everything. What's more fun to you, knowing that I'm going to get this sword that's +4 at the end of this quest, or not being sure if it'll be +8 or 9 or 10? I think that's just key to game design in general. I mean, I'll bring it back to Counter-Strike. Team Fortress also uses this model. We know it too. 3 of the most popular games on Steam. When you finish a match, there's a chance, right? It's not certain. There's a chance. It's algorithmically driven based on how many items you've gotten that week. That you'll get an item, and there's a chance that you'll get a uncommon item or a rare item or a super rare item. And even not getting that, right? Not getting what I want, motivates me to play again because I want another pull in the slot machine, basically.
You were saying that one of the goals when you're trying to get your game out there is to show people it's fun, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, you want to get them engaged in an entertaining way really quickly. What are some of the ways that you see that are successful that companies accomplish that outside of, say, trailer, I guess, to get them to be able to hands-on experience it before the release date, I guess, so that you can iterate and make modifications based on what you're hearing.
I think you kind of touched on this a little bit. I mean, putting it in the hands of people that are already beloved and trusted by the people you're targeting. YouTubers are a big scene for that right now, right? Where folks are known for being funny, being fun specifically. There are YouTubers who just joke around, and that's their shtick, And your game may not play to that, but it might have some elements of absurdity. I mean, The Sims, for example, had this huge marketing campaign because there are some crazy things you can do with it that are inherently funny, right? They paid a lot of money to make their game sponsored by YouTubers. They can play with it, and they just simply allowed them to put their spin on it. They weren't saying okay, let's showcase the game this way or showcase it that way, because that would be the wrong way of going about it, right? That would be allowing their viewers and their fans to sort of say oh, hey, this guy really likes this. Maybe I should take a look at it too.
Sure.
Excuse me. A few additional observations and a personal conclusion that would be awesome to respond to. So you talked about mostly entertainment games, PC games. Just to note, and I think everyone is probably also aware of the ubiquity of so-called serious games, educational games. Now I'm from academia, so educational games is a big research topic, and everybody's interested in educational games. Two are gamification, the whole idea of gamification, game elements being applied to everything. So following from those two things, serious games and gamification are just the absolute penetration that all things game-like have in daily life today. And not just in the games, not just in the game systems or the achievement systems that are on sites like Fitocracy for working out or any cycling website, but also all the media that surround games, right? Like, so I use howlongtobeat.com for talking about managing my time and my massive Steam backlog.
Yeah.
And then there's forums, and there's, you know, all your social networks that are on PlayStation Network and Xbox One. So I mean, it's just this whole giant penetration of gaming into life that's like, I mean, way beyond, you know, what a PowerPoint can convey, right? But which leads me to my kind of personal conclusion is that given all these, like, my time constraints as, you know, as a middle-aged individual, and given the fact that gaming is just everywhere and more, everywhere, almost it's becoming a bit too much, and it's making me very skeptical of games that I hear about, new games. I read your magazine, and that's one way that I kind of sift through it all, but like the Steam front store, there's like a billion games on Steam. I've just become very skeptical of people telling me about, oh, man, you know, this new game, I don't care, like, unless it really jumps out at me. So how do you kind of deal with the inundation of gaming in everyday life, where it's where you're looking for it, and it's where you're not looking for it, and it's just everywhere?
It's a total reality. And no, I mean, I really relate to that, because in some ways, like, that's my job every day. Like, we're being put in front of us things that may or may not be worth covering. We have some responsibility to cover, and it's really challenging. I don't know what to put beyond that. I mean, we have to rely on our instincts as journalists, I guess. But yeah, I don't see, as far as Steam's concerned, is that the platform I'm concerned with the most? Like, you know, I was really critical of the latest update because I don't think they did enough at all to address the fundamental underlying issues of, like, they built the system in 2003 to accommodate one publisher's games, and it's fundamentally changed into a proper store. They have music now, they have their own music player, and they haven't transformed it, right? So, I'm not sure.
Well, you know, I guess on my end, for you know, whenever I'm dealing with games on a personal level, I mean, I guess what you're referring to, you know, and Evan, you mentioned as well, is essentially decision paralysis or choice paralysis. Like, there's so many choices that it's like, okay, so what do I do? I mean, me personally, you know, when I do it personally, the way I've kind of settled on is like, okay, which genres do I like? And, you know, turn-based strategy, RPGs, and the occasional, you know, action game. So I will, for personal reasons, you know, the games that I buy that work related, I will focus on those elements. And if there's you know, someone is raving about another game that is in a totally different genre, I may, if I have time, check it out. But, you know, it would have to be like really extraordinary, you know, with tons of friends recommending it to me for me to do it. Or I would have to have seen enough of the gameplay to be like, whoa, that's kind of interesting. Which is why, you know, going back to the, you know, seeing it in action either via demos or the YouTubers or on Twitch is kind of a big deal. So by seeing the game in action, then you'll know, oh, you know, that gameplay is kind of something that I think I'd be into, so let me try it out. So that's short of that, you know, I know what I like, so I'll check those out first.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you guys operate, but I think collectively, I think PC gamers especially, like, we basically started to crowdsource how we investigate games, and just sort of relying on, oh, if this is cool, I'll hear about it. Well, if Destiny's worth playing, my friends will mention it enough, and they'll pull me in, or they'll urge me, or I'll see it pop up on social media, or I'll see, like, the people I trust on Twitter talking about it. Like, I think compared to, you know, 5 or 10 years ago, where journalistically speaking, like, the preview review cycle was like a very, like, rigid thing. That's like something we've had to move away from, right? Because early access, for example, why would I evaluate this game or tell you if it's worth playing when you can just watch it right now, like, decide for yourself? So, like, as an editorial outlet, you've had to, like, think about, is that still relevant?
This way.
Yes. What role does future technology trends have in gaming, such as augmented reality, virtual reality, wearable tech? What does that have? What's the future in that area?
Yeah, it's a fascinating one. It's an uncharted one in a lot of ways. I mean, I think one of the things we're seeing pop up right now is stuff like Google Glass, stuff like some of my friends are on this Tumblr blog. I think it's like white guys wearing Oculus Rift or something, and it's just photos of people looking kind of silly wearing Oculus Rift. So that, like, there's already like this interesting sort of stigma associated with these like AR, VR devices, right? That like somehow you're for one thing, for Oculus, that you're like blanking out reality, that you're desocializing yourself, that you're like, and that's something I'm really concerned with. Like, how is that going to change the landscape of what it means to be a gamer, like the lifestyle aspect of gaming? Because in one way, we're seeing PC gaming move in a direction where Valve is building an operating system meant to, a Linux-based operating system meant to put PC gaming in the living room, where it can be shared and spectated very easily, sort of made public and taken away from the desk. But we have at the opposite end of the spectrum, Oculus sort of really privatizing that experience. And I think it's going to be really fascinating design-wise, and we're already seeing like a few examples of experimental and educational, even Oculus games that involve touch, that involve like interfacing with someone. Like I think there's one that I forget, and there's like another camera to sort of like let you have the experience of being in someone else's body, like sort of imitating that. So I don't strictly think of it as like, oh, it is you're having a screen on your face, and it's can only strictly be a one-person experience. I think there are going to be some interesting multiplayer takes on that. I just hope that Oculus, now being owned by Facebook, they're able to really encourage and stimulate like a huge swath of experimentation.
Yeah, and similarly, you know, a device like Oculus is great because, or has the potential for doing really cool things because it is a new and unique experience that can't be replicated easily, you know, or at all with other forms of medium. But that being said, you know, going back to a, you know, that's a lot of clicks. So going back to this, devices like Oculus Rift will be another option, another technological option on which people can play games if they choose. But you know, there will still exist other forms, other devices that folks may prefer to play games on as well. Some folks may wind up in a situation or be of the mind that, you know, no matter how much you pay me, I won't game on Oculus Rift because, you know, I get motion sickness very easily, or whatever the case may be. They'll prefer to play on tablets, but then there are folks that be like, you know, hey, the Oculus is a really immersive experience, and I really get this, and this is how I want to experience certain types of games. So it's just another option, another tool that you can, you know, you can create games for if it's something that you're passionate about. And I guess we're wrapping up.
I have a quick question. I'm also interested in gamers, gamification, serious games. So you talk about the buying items during the game. What is the logic of this? Like normally I enjoy while spending. I'll enjoy the process instead of trying to go fast. But what do you think? What's the logic of this?
Yeah, like why do people do it?
Yes.
Yeah,
like
so
why do they enjoy a lot?
Sure. So in I'll use Counter-Strike again as an example. It's the most played shooter on Steam. The items are purely cosmetic, right? Because that's a game where if they introduced items that had like an advantage, like everyone would be very upset. It's a very like tightly designed, competitive, like tactical game. So instead, the items sort of become status symbols. They become sort of expressions of your wealth. In one thing, you know, how lucky you are, that you can show off to your friends. And they have some mechanics that facilitate this, right? So when you die in Counter-Strike, you are watching instantly through the eyes of your friends, the people on your team. So you're able to see what they're carrying in their hands, and then you're able to see like, oh, he has that, and have a sense of how valuable that is. Like, how do you get that? That's really cool. And also, when you die, if you drop your weapon on the ground, you're able to pick that up from someone. You're able to sort of steal something valuable from them, almost. And that sort of has a you know, it's not directly represented in things like points, but it's sort of become this status symbol, this sort of way. And it's very intentional. Yeah, trophy is a great way of putting it. Like they knew coming in like, how can we work microtransactions into our game that is like very balanced and very well tuned, and we can't change any of the values on damage and things like that. Like people would abandon us. Well, we have like a spectating system where when somebody dies, they see the item, they see. I mean, like for example, there are like $400 virtual knives you can buy in the game, and these are all set by players, right? They determine the value. Valve sort of sets the rarity with their algorithms, but you can sell them for $1 or $400 if you want. So yeah, I think it's always going to be specific to the game. Like if you can find a way to fold in and like synergize, like Zoe was talking about synergy in your keynote, like you can't just sort of tack on microtransactions in any game. You can't sort of say like, well, we're going to design it, we're going to like figure out how we make money later. Like, the more you can fold those things in together elegantly, the happier everyone's going to be, I think.
That's it. I guess we're out of time.
Yeah, but yeah, we can talk in the hallway if you guys want. Thanks so much for coming.
Yeah,
really great.
thank you very much.